All right, let's call this meeting to order. Man in Black's out here in the crowd. Good to see Chancellor John Rambo in the house. Yeah. Judge Darth Vader. We all better be careful tonight. Yeah. I brought my lightsaber. We have a little rally, a little fight down there. All right, appreciate everybody braving the weather to come out. It's kind of a nasty day, and I think we're going to have a freezing rain tonight, so be careful driving home. It looks like the first thing on our agenda is the swearing in of the new board members. I guess it's the old board members coming back to be new ones, so it's good to see that on here. We'll get Terry and Adam and myself, I guess, down there to go through the swearing in with Chancellor Rambo. That's the first thing on. Who do you want first, John?
Let's see, I guess protocol would be Mr. Dixon first.
All right. Yeah, if you can, right there by that microphone. That way the public can hear you.
Well, Mr. Mayor, thank you for calling on me to swear in the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And in a tumultuous 2020, it looks like the people of the town of Jonesborough liked what they had and kept what they had. So I congratulate all of you on your re-election. And that's not too often that the board has no change. So that's credit to all of you and what this entire board does for us, citizens of the town of Jonesborough. Mr. Dixon, congratulations. And if you are ready to assume the office of Alderman, if you will raise your right hand and repeat after me.
Yes, sir.
I solemnly swear that I, Adam Dixon,
I solemnly swear that I, Adam Dixon,
possess all the qualifications
possess all the qualifications
prescribed for the office of Alderman,
prescribed for the office of Alderman,
as prescribed by the charter of the town of Jonesborough,
as prescribed by the charter of the town of Jonesborough,
Tennessee,
Tennessee,
and that I will support the Constitution,
and that I will support the Constitution,
and I will obey the laws
and I will obey the laws
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Tennessee,
and of the state of Tennessee,
that I will, in all respects,
in all respects,
observe the provisions
observe the provisions
of the charter and ordinances
of the charter and the ordinances
of the town of Jonesborough,
of the town of Jonesborough,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of Alderman.
the duties of the office of Alderman.
Congratulations, Alderman Dixon.
Thank you, Chairman.
Alderman Countermine.
I would have dressed up with a tie, but then nobody would recognize me.
Well, you do have your mask disguise on. But you've been around long enough.
I'm glad you had the name right on
I recognize you, Alderman. Alderman Terry Countermine, congratulations, and if you are ready to assume the duties yet again of Alderman for the town of Jonesborough, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I solemnly swear that I, Terry Countermine,
I solemnly swear that I, Terry Countermine,
possess all the qualifications
possess all the qualifications
prescribed for the office of Alderman,
prescribed for the office of Alderman,
as prescribed by the charter
as prescribed by the charter
of the town of Jonesborough, Tennessee,
of the town of Jonesborough, Tennessee,
and that I will support the Constitution
and that I will support the Constitution
and will obey the laws of the United States
and will obey the laws of the United States
and the state of Tennessee,
and the state of Tennessee,
that I will in all respects
that I will in all respects
observe the provisions
observe the provisions
of the charter and ordinances
of the charter and ordinances
of the town of Jonesborough,
of the town of Jonesborough,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of Alderman.
the duties of the office of Alderman.
Congratulations. here's our leader, the mayor of the town of Jonesborough. Congratulations on your reelection.
Thank you.
If you are prepared to assume the duties again of the office of mayor of Jonesborough, please raise your right hand, Mayor Best, and repeat after me. I solemnly swear that I, Chuck Best,
I solemnly swear, I, Chuck Vest,
possess all the qualifications
possess all the qualifications
prescribed for the office of mayor,
prescribed for the office of mayor,
as prescribed
as prescribed
by the charter of the town of
by
Jonesborough,
the
Tennessee,
charter of the town of Jonesborough, Tennessee,
and that I will support the Constitution
and that I will support the Constitution
and will obey the laws
and will obey the laws
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Tennessee,
and of the state of Tennessee,
that I will in all respects
that I will in all respects
observe the provisions
observe the provisions
of the charter and ordinances
of the charter and ordinances
of the town of Jonesborough,
of the town of Jonesborough,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the office of mayor.
the duties of the office of mayor.
Congratulations, Mayor Bell.
Thank you.
Well, from a galaxy far, far away, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you all.
Thank you, John.
John, you still live in the city limits of Jonesborough?
I do.
You do, all right.
Yeah, I voted.
How many times?
There was no election challenge, thankfully. Remember me in 2022.
See ya. Okay, looks like the next thing, going to our regular meeting, and we'll call that meeting to order. And we'll let Vice Mayor Dixon lead us in our opening prayer.
Let us all pray. Dear Lord, how good and pleasant it is when men and women can dwell together in unity. And we just thank you, God, for the unity that you provide and the overwhelming blessings that, God, you give to us, your people. Take the time, God, to see you are, again, such a wonderful and loving God. And we appreciate you on this day. We're told that in all things we ought to give thanks. It's the will of God concerning us. God, we're thankful for this community in which we live. And we're thankful for the people that make up this community. We're thankful for the camaraderie that we have. And Lord, even in contentious times, Lord, we're grateful that we have the opportunity and the platform to build community. So we do pray, Lord, that you continue to guide this staff of the town, that we can continue to make our town strong. You guide the deliberations of this board this evening, that, God, that our decisions will be pleasing. And, Lord, we just ask that everything be done to your glory. We ask it all, Lord, in your name. Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Adam. Ruth, who do you have tonight? All right.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Ruth. Okay, Madam Recorder, roll call, please.
Mayor Vest,
Here.
Alderman Callahan,
Here.
Alderman Causey. Here. Alderman Tonemeyer.
Here.
Alderman Dixon.
Here.
All right, we're all present. And now we'll move into the consent agenda. Alderman, is there anything there that you'd like to see pulled to discuss?
7C, E, and 8.
7C, E, and number 8?
Yes.
Okay. Good with that. Alderman, anything else?
And 9.
Okay. With those changes, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 7C, E, 8, and 9.
So moved.
Motion to approve from Alderman Callahan,
Second.
second from Alderman Causey. Madam Recorder, call for the vote, please.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Causey. Alderman Countermine.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
All right, motion carried. You know, really what's in that consent agenda tonight, we've got some, fortunately, some resignations in our public safety area, but also some promotions there in our public safety area, so it's good to see internal promotions there, appointing a new firefighter, and buying a little mini excavator, some things in there that helps us get things done, and then just the purchase of a couple of vehicles for our street department, so that's there on the agenda, and a few other odds and ends. All right, Virginia, I'll let you lead the way on 7C. It says the appointment of an equipment operator in water distribution.
I had a discussion with Mr. Rosenoff and Mr. Ford. I think when we're promoting employees from within, we need to look at their step and take them the same step that they're in, because the steps are because of the years of service. It's not just because that's where they put them. And on this one, the 7C, I would like to see it go from 5-4 to 5-5. I make that as a motion. And Mr. Ford, if you have a question on it, Mr. Ford can address it.
Yeah, Craig, may I have you address that, please?
Typically, if you're promoting to a supervisor's position, they still should get an increase, but it shouldn't be straight up. In this situation here, this employee is served as a backup operator and pretty much has done this job for some time now, and it makes perfect sense. He's going from a backup to a full-time operator, so it would make perfect sense he's at a 3-5 now, to move him to a 5-5 instead of a 5-4. So I certainly concur with Alderman Causey on catching that.
Very good. She's got eagle eyes there. That is, yeah, we shouldn't take a step back, because that is, as Virginia says, years of service.
Right.
Okay, Alderman, any other questions there? If not, we've got a motion on the floor, as spoken by Virginia, to accept that recommendation, but changing the pay scale from to grade 5, step 5.
I'll second that.
Got a second from Alderman Countermine. Is that correct, Virginia? Okay, any discussion? Call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Alderman Causey. Alderman Countermine.
Aye.
Alderman Callahan. Alderman Dixon.
All right, motion carried.
And then, Mayor, if you would permit me and Alderman Causey on 7E, that was actually reported to the board incorrectly on the grade and step. What the Board of Mayor and Aldermen received was a 3-1. That position is actually a 4-1. So thankfully, Eagle Eye caught that because it was just an error. It was reported as a 3-1, but the job is actually a 4-1.
Okay. Virginia, was that going to be what you addressed? Okay. So as part of that recommendation would be to accept the recommendation with the pay moving to grade 4, step 1.
Right.
Okay. As spoken, I would take a motion for that.
So moved.
Motion to approve from Alderman Causey.
Second.
Second from Alderman Countermine. Any other discussion? All right, call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Alderman Causey. Alderman Countermine.
Aye.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
All right, motion carried. That's very good. Make sure our people get paid correctly. Okay, now we got number 8 is the special event request by the State of Franklin Track Club. It's the Eagles Ridge Run at Persimmon Ridge Park. It looks like they got a good little trail picked out down there. So Virginia, I'll let you lead the way.
I'm going to let Glenn address this one.
Okay, Glenn.
I was going on the assumption, so. Ms. Cantor's not here. I did correspond with her a few days back. One of the, I guess the main issues involving the race, one is as far as Director Matt Townsend, as far as the race itself being able to be accommodated, that seems to be, that's an okay. You know, that's he's recommended for it, and doesn't see issues. However, talking with Chief Street and even Chief Fritz, there's more on probably the public safety aspect of it, as far as some of the remoteness of the race itself, and more of the, I would say, the public safety concerns that if someone was to get hurt, currently we don't have a four-wheeler that, with a stretcher that can go up there and respond. There are avenues like the EMS that have, that can be contacted and have a unit. But I did want, if Chief Street is up to it, just come over and chat a little bit about some of the remoteness of the race trail itself.
Well, you certainly want to have some vehicle there that allow you to get up on the trail. Yeah.
So some of the, just to let you know, some of the concerns from Chief Fritz ultimately memoed me with some questions, and I did send that to Ms. Cantor. To be quite honest, with the issues that we've had with some emails lately, I can't assume that she received that, but I can follow up if there's any follow-up to do.
Chief Street?
Chief Fritz and I had two major concerns. One is the remoteness of the area that they will be running in. Part of it, especially up on the ridge line into the water tank, don't have access to other than by foot. Second concern is how would we be notified, people in that remote area, if some emergency does occur? And as you know, in a medical emergency, time is of the utmost importance. And if they're not carrying cell phones, and we certainly don't have enough people to monitor that trail, every section of it. So we're concerned if we can get medical to them quick enough. And normally in a race like this, we do have certain medical emergencies that occur. People passing out, fainting, breaking limbs and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And especially on a trail like that, as Harry knows about, his
Yeah.
wife was one of those victims, I guess. But we're concerned about having this race. 3.5 miles is a lot of territory on a trail to have a race.
Chief, is it my understanding, even with EMS's mini vans, there's certain areas of that trail that's not wide enough to get it up there?
That is correct. Not wide enough and too steep to get even the mini-med into there.
Have there been runs like this in this area, on this type of terrain?
Not since I've been here. We've not had any races on that terrain.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, with Sandy, they had to carry a stretcher by hand up to get her.
Yeah, right.
And that was, I think, a broken foot, broken
Broken ankle, yeah.
If it was a heart attack, that's what I'm really concerned about, things of
Yeah.
that nature.
Wow.
Where if you don't get to them in 5 minutes, they're in trouble.
Well, I'm not as familiar with that track that they want to run on the trail, and how safe it was. Is there things there that could be
And I have a
tripping
map
issues?
of all our trails.
Yeah, how clear is it? Is it? I mean, it's a trail. How wide are these trails?
Well, some of them are fairly wide, have bridges across the creeks down on the lower end.
Right.
But up on the ridge, up over Browning, that comes out, that right down the hill from the water tank, it's just a footpath.
That's what I
mud
thought.
footpath.
Okay, yeah.
For quite a ways out the ridge, then you have to come all the way off the ridge, pretty steep coming off of there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and there's a couple other trails like that too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it probably doesn't sound like those trails are necessarily cut out for, what they're looking at right now. Yeah.
They're not designed to have a race on with multiple people running side by side.
Right. Okay.
So I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware of public safety concerns, and, I mean, they're legitimate concerns. I think during this, unprecedented times, a lot of organizations are trying to do something different,
Yeah.
whether it's Paws in Blue or whether or not it's a race. And, those are, some of the decisions are, easier to make, but without public safety, being available, or as Chief Street was saying, I mean, the amount of people you need to monitor the race, to actually with a cell phone and monitor, we don't have the personnel. And I can't tell you whether or not Ms. Cantor or their organization would have that as well.
Yeah, it is probably a good idea to be doing a road race outdoors and in somewhat isolated areas, but if the trails, are just really for a single person path, it's probably pretty risky. and maybe probably not worth the risk, I would think. Alderman, you got any comments or questions? I'm not sure if we necessarily need to vote on it. We can just let it may not be somebody come forward with a better idea to change it in some way. It might prove to be safe. Otherwise, do we really need to turn it down or just pass it?
Probably not. If you would let them know you're not gonna do it, but
Right.
if you choose not to act on it, then I guess that the staff can let them know that.
Yeah, let's let Alderman
Yeah.
make your choice and make a motion to just not act on it, or we can make a motion to deny it.
I think if you went the direction of not acting on it, then staff such as us would talk to Ms. Cantor, and
Right.
again, she should know the concerns and see whether or not there's an alternate race.
Yeah.
I mean, I know for the adults it's 3.5 miles. We don't want to put into subdivisions or near public roads where we have more public safety has to be involved. But staff can go back and work with her on the concerns of the board. I'd be happy to talk with her and meet with her and see if there's an alternative solution to
Yeah, they
eliminate.
could choose just to do the little
Yeah,
one one or something if it's safer.
To just, I mean, you can't eliminate public safety concerns totally, but definitely minimize them to the best that we can. I can go back to Ms. Cantor and talk to her about that.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Anything that we do on that should be subject to the COVID guidelines or what's going on with the virus right now, too.
I agree.
Mr. Mayor, so, because the staff may be working with them, but I probably need to point out from legal that there's nothing in here about this being subject to the hold harmless agreement on insurance. Hold harmless agreement looks fine, but the insurance certificate expires in December, so I assume they're gonna provide another one before the race. But any approval of a future event would need to be subject to that. There's some standard language that we used to put in the presentations on these that say that kind of cover us, that we're not gonna let the event happen without that.
Okay. All right. We won't take any action on that. Do we need to vote on it, Jim, or just vote?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, very good. Appreciate public safety bringing up those good points. All right, number 9, approval of the 2021 employee holiday schedule. What's your pleasure there, Virginia and Glenn?
I am very much of an advocate for employees and benefits for them, but I talked with Glenn, and Glenn's going to monitor some of these, and he can address the concerns that I had.
Sure. So, again, with COVID, as Alderman Causey was talking about, and as we continue to talk about it, it becomes the variable in much of our day-to-day operations, good or bad, good days, bad days, but such as things as May 28th, the employee picnic at Water Park, that did not work out this past year. So I would, again, recommend subject to the water park being open. It would make sense. Unfortunately, having to do that, but it does make sense. Because what happens is probably by April, employees are like, hey, what's the status? And as we continue to monitor the community transmission rates, it's very difficult to make that decision. As you know, it was hard to even just open water parks, or wetlands. So I would definitely recommend subject to wetlands being open or water park being open. One other one that we talked about was September 3rd, the Employee United Way Day, which is a half a day. Something that we talked about was to make that a half a day where someone can actually not have to take it just on that Friday, but can take that half a day, by the end of the year. That might be maybe a more of an accounting to it, because then of course then you have a half a day that you have to account for. But that might raise some more folks to sign up for it. Right now, if pretty much it's that Friday and you get that half a day, and everybody that supports United Way gets that. But that would open it up to where you're not mandated to take it that Friday. That doesn't mean you can't do it that Friday, but it would be more up to the department heads. October 1st, Storytelling Festival, just like it happened this year, I would recommend subject to the Storytelling Festival actually occurring. Obviously, it occurred virtually, and I think it had great success virtually, but again, this was proposed all along to be a physical festival, so subject to having it occur.
For a physical festival, not virtual.
Right. And then the December 17th employee Christmas party, and I would say that also subject to it occurring, as this year, you may or may not know, we're not having a full-fledged Christmas party with all employees. We're just kind of dividing up among department heads with social distancing and as best as you can, and basically celebrating among ourselves. Both Mr. Ford and myself will be visiting all departments this coming Friday, but I would have that subject to it being an actual full-fledged citywide Christmas party for employees.
Okay, that it?
I think I addressed them all.
Okay, Alderman, you got any comments about that? It looks like, May 28th, just because of the uncertainty of whether or not we open our water park or not. That would be a subject to holiday. And then Storytelling Festival, much the same thing. We'd have to have the actual festival here in Jonesborough, so that would be subject to that, not a virtual festival. And then employee Christmas parties, subject to any restrictions that might still be in place. Does that sound right, Virginia?
Sounds good.
Looks like they get a lot of days out in November for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
From 25th to 266th.
Yeah.
And Mayor, I'll just add up, probably rather than me saying physical, probably let's go with live.
Live? Okay. All right. We won't be taking 266 days off there in November. I'm glad Terry caught that.
That's a great Thanksgiving.
Okay, Alderman, I'll take a motion to approve the 2021 holiday schedule with the changes spoken, with the, in most cases, subject to on May 28th, subject to on October 1st, and subject to on December 17th.
So moved.
I'll second, Mayor.
Got a motion to approve from Alderman Causey, a second from Alderman Dixon. Any other discussion? All right, call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Countermine.
Aye.
All right, very good, motion carried, and that took care of everything on our consent agenda. And now we're going to move into our regular agenda. First item up is our financial report, and I think things look pretty decent there. Abby, you got anything you'd like to report?
No, sir. The auditors completed their field work a couple weeks ago, and I got the finalized draft to them yesterday, and we'll present that in January.
Okay, very good. I know Abby and her team and Glenn and Craig and all the guys, they do a good job with the town of Jonesborough's business, so looking forward to getting that audit back. Alderman, any other comments about the financial report? If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Motion to approve from Alderman Callahan,
Second.
second from Alderman Countermine. Call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Countermine.
Aye.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
All right, motion carried. Now we'll move into communications from the mayor, and just a couple of things here. I'll knock out first. Just I always like talking about our sales tax, and came through good there for the month of September, about a 10% increase over last year, so coming in about $180,000. So it's nice to continue to see that trend. Expect that to continue until we start comping those numbers, come March probably. So things are still positive in that area. I want to just say I spent some time, coming through downtown Jonesborough and eating down here. I tell you what, I think our staff has done an outstanding job this year with our Christmas decor. I think some of our merchants even pitched in down there, and all of that synergy of the town and the merchants and really the citizens. It seems like the response has been great. I've got so many compliments on it, so thank you to everyone involved in that. And also, I think, appreciate Glenn sending me a little email. We got a compliment, I think, today or recently from a citizen here in Jonesborough. I think it's Mr. Chapman, Bill Chapman, I think. He kind of witnessed one of our sanitation truck drivers doing something kind of above and beyond. And sometimes it's easy to miss these big things and good things that our staff does out there because we're not there to watch them all the time and see them. And it's good when the citizens take the time to report those. And what Bill witnessed was one of our sanitation drivers pulling up to a home. People got a lot of cardboard and things now, but you got our trash can there that the truck will load up and dump. Well, in this case, we had the trash can plus another large box of just cardboard and other debris sitting beside it, which means it's kind of, you can't lift that necessarily up into the truck. So the driver lifted our container up into the truck, got out of the truck and went and got the cardboard that was in the other, dumped it in the trash can. So it took the time, really, some places might have just left it there because that's not the policy, but he took the time to put it all in the container and dump it again. So we appreciate, they call that good customer service, and we'll certainly appreciate little things that mean big things. All right, I get to do Employee of the Month, and we can't do any high-fiving, I guess, or anything now, but we've got a great one here, and I'm going to take the time to read this, and I think we're planning on doing some type of award ceremony at some point, and I think the Herald and Tribune's we're going to put something in there recognizing all 12 months of Employee of the Month winners. But here's for this month. Please allow me the opportunity to nominate Major Matt Rice, and he's hiding back there. See, he does great work here at the town of Jonesborough. Wants to nominate Matt Rice as Employee of the Month for December 2020. Major Rice is a 17-plus year employee of the town of Jonesborough, serving in the police department. His current position is Operations Major, overseeing the entire patrol function of the police department. Major Rice has very effectively demonstrated his ability to work with other law enforcement leaders as well as all department heads in our town. Through his hard work and dedication to the town, Major Rice has earned the reputation as a go-to person when other town employees have a question or concerns about public safety issues. His devotion to his job often requires him to work overtime when manpower shortages occur due to training, sickness, vacancies, etc. Very often, Major Rice works his assigned days off to assure adequate police coverage. He does so without complaint. Major Rice is also the LISO coordinator, which is the one that secures military surplus property for us, for the town. Major Rice coordinates, plans, and oversees security at town events such as the Jonesborough Days, storytelling, haunts and happenings, music on the square, and many other events. It certainly keeps you busy, I'm sure. Always assuring a well-coordinated and safe event for the public. Through his efforts, Matt has earned the respect of other town employees, the public, and his law enforcement peers, and also this board. In closing, Major Matt Rice is the type of devoted employee you always want to recruit, but few accomplish what Matt devotes to the town. His attitude and work ethic certainly makes him a great candidate for Employee of the Month. And that's Chief Street nominated you there, so we appreciate you, Matt, everything you do. Okay, that's all I've got. Alderman, communications, say your piece. Terry?
Well, I'd like to repeat what you did, the downtown. I've had more people tell me how nice the downtown looks, and I think we ought to look into putting more receptacles on some more streetlights so we could do more trees next year.
Right.
And then budget for it, because it really has attracted people to town. And I know part of the problem we couldn't put it on some of the trees is you couldn't run lights, but when we had the receptacle put in there for music on the square, Bright Ridge did that. I think they charged like a couple $100 to do that. Don't they?
The biggest issue with that, Alderman Countermine, is they will not put it on there if it can't be metered. So when we done the underground project downtown, some of those receptacles in the tree wells are actually coming from the meter bases over at the courthouse. underneath the street, so that wouldn't be an easy undertaking. I'm sure somehow it can be done, but we would have to try to figure out with Bright Ridge how to do that, because they won't do that unless they come off of a meter somewhere.
So do we pay for the lights, the electric for the lights?
Yes, sir.
So if we do the if the lights are being metered and you do the same circuit, I don't see how that wouldn't be metered.
Yes, what I'm saying is, the receptacles that's in the tree wells where the lots are at come off of the meter at the courthouse. So Bright Ridge wouldn't just come out and put receptacles on the light poles. They would have to come from a meter base somewhere that the town's paying for.
Okay.
But basically, if we had to put additional electrical stations in, then we have to get with Bright Ridge for them to be able to have that connectivity.
I think it'd be worth checking the price, because it really,
Yeah, I guess
as
there
popular
is.
as those lights have been, to start at Boone Street and go all the way to the log cabin would be impressive.
Yeah, I think Terry's on the right track there. And I think part of it was that we kind of got a late jump on even getting the lights put out that we did. And but looking where we're at today and think about what Terry's saying, we really we can expand those Christmas lights further down Main Street.
Yeah.
You know, whether we've got power or not, there's probably places we can expand that light show, I guess you call it a light show, you know, down Main Street further. So
Yeah.
it's certainly something that we should explore.
But myself and Mr. Ford, we can explore that.
And we got a
whether or
year
not
to do it, so.
Yep.
Whether it be freestanding or connected to
And
an
we got next year's
existing.
budget that we could put it in, so.
Well, and lights and stuff like that, nowadays with LED, they use very little power, and it could
Yeah.
be some type of battery source that's, you know, temporary that you set up and plug into. But you know, we certainly can use some of the land we have available, like in front of the Christopher Taylor House, that we could maybe do something there, wherever we've got some-
Trees.
just any way to expand that show down the
Yeah.
street.
Yeah.
We've had that issue before. The street lights the town pays for on investments, so they're not metered. There's just a base charge every month that you pay for that. And so they won't run a receptacle off of that light. It has to come out of a meter somewhere. So they can charge you for the power.
I understand. Right.
So that's the issue.
Okay. Terry, anything else?
Nope, just,
Good idea. All right, Adam, you got anything?
I don't know if anyone paid any attention, Mr. Rosenoff's report. I'm awfully excited to see the downtown loan program get off the ground. That's something
Yes.
that has been awfully exciting to me, and the fact that we could have a pool of cash to help the development of downtown businesses. And I just think that that's just a positive development. I think it'll be very helpful to build our downtown base, and also I think just make our Main Street more vibrant. So I'm really happy to see that. Very happy to see that.
I agree with that. And all right, Virginia?
I would like to see them add more lights up here at the Triangle. Because, Rachel, don't we have electricity at the Triangle? So that would be
Yeah.
easy.
that would be nice
Yeah,
too.
there you
Yeah.
go. All right.
That way it would be bringing it into Jonesborough.
We're learning these festival things and lights. We're going to get it right.
Now the light can obviously be an arrow pointing,
Yeah.
pointing them to the destination we'd like them to go.
Yeah, flashing lights.
Spend money this
But
way.
I agree, the beautification, the attractiveness of the season, a lot of people have commented in a positive way. Sometimes you don't know, because you're trying to spend money, but a lot of times with the attractiveness of downtown or your corridors, that's the whole point, is to attract people,
Exactly.
their attention, to bring you somewhere, and makes downtown a destination and the corridors a destination.
Yeah.
I've seen more traffic downtown, it seems like, in the past year or so than I ever have before. And just been down there for our tree lighting to hear most of the merchants say they were having record sales that day of Black Friday.
Yeah.
That just tells you we're doing something right. And I think when the additional lights, came up kind of suddenly, had a little bit of money left over, and that's where we came to lighting the trees and things. And I think now, if we thinking ahead a little bit, we can expand on that. And if people will drive to the racetrack to to witness a light show up there's no reason why they shouldn't drive through the most historic town in Tennessee and see another light show for Christmas as well. So we'll certainly, grow that. Stephen?
I am good.
You're good?
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Stephen. I was having some meetings up there today. Where would you say you was with? BioPure, is that where you was?
Yep. Rusty Crow and Rebecca and Tim.
Yeah, we appreciate. I'm sure Stephen's making us look good up there, meeting with the big wigs. We leave that up to him. He's our face. Adam touched on Glenn's administrator's report, and it's a very good report. And one thing I've noted there is where we're talking about downtown parking. That's been kind of a little bit of a sore spot, I think. And I guess we discovered we've always had an ordinance down there limiting parking to 2 hours, and that seems like an appropriate amount. Is there anything we should discuss on that, Glenn, to kind of get that moving forward? Because we've got a problem with cars taking up spaces down there that are that just not be parking there all day and all night.
I think ultimately timed parking. My recommendation would be is that that you, Mayor, or the board just direct staff into presenting, 2 hours that Mr. Ford and myself we've talked about is, and I believe is when downtown revitalization occurred. There was already timed parking, and then I guess during revitalization they were removed. So there was at one point an ordinance affected that says timed parking. And then we never rescinded that as far as I know, but whether or not 2 hours or 1 hour, something does need to be done. It's a reoccurring. I mean, I've been around this area in planning, land use, and parking issues since 2000, and it's the same issues or rhetoric. I tried the partnership through a letter to each office holder. As you know, the parking along the east and west side, but the abutting the courthouse is county parking or county land responsibility, and then the outer ones, on the Mock side or the Texas Burrito side, that is city. And I would say I know I get emails or a text message 2 to 3 times a week. It's unfortunate when I see one, I'm like, oh no. It's sometimes a different subject, but it's still a reoccurring issue. I believe I haven't been here that long, but I've exhausted my administrative idea of partnership. And again, it probably has got better here and there, but I think we need direction to say, hey, explore time parking, and then both myself and Mr. Ford and even Chief Street can figure out an hour. If it's 2 hours, I'll just simply let everyone know we're reinitiating that. If it's less than 2 hours, then we'll have to come back to the board.
Let's just stick with 2 hours. Seems appropriate when you have theater shows and things like that. There's a reason why people might need to park there for 2 hours, but there's not reason for people to get there at 8 o'clock in the morning and stay there till 5 or 6. So 2 hours is appropriate. Gives people time to shop through downtown, and we'll know if it's 2 hours or 3 hours. It's there, but you got to have that for the minimum, I think, for the shows.
And we can monitor that, and we can report back to say, hey, 2 hours is working great, or we need to look at an alternative.
Well, and it can be like from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. too, right?
Yeah, it's a good.
Because then the theater wouldn't matter.
Yeah, you could put a time in there to where after 8 or something it might not matter.
I have a
or
picture on my
after-
phone. I
after
won't
6.
pick it up, but I'm trying to remember what the county has on their side. I think it's maybe 8 to 5, or
Yeah, I think that
so we
would
can
be fine.
look into that.
Yeah,
We
it's,
need to be sure that was part of the ordinance, though.
Yeah.
That the limitation.
I'd probably say I don't think it was. I think it was just 2 hour parking. So
Yeah, might want to add that.
anything that varies from that 2 hours, I'll have to bring it back before the board.
Well, you could be, even though it would be easy to, I would probably recommend not really at 8 p.m. as we get more restaurants and things staying open down there later. There's probably a reason why that, stays in effect till 8. But it does probably diminish after 5 when the courthouse closes and such.
Yeah, that's
But I'm
right.
not even sure if you even need to put that in there, because if somebody gets there at 10 o'clock at night and parks until 7 o'clock the next morning, it's probably not that big a deal. It probably at that point comes down to whether or not you enforce it at that time. We can just choose not to enforce it after 9, so we can just have a 2-hour limit and we enforce it during the time that we can. Jim's looking at me for that, 'cause I just.
We might need to have some discussion with staff and with public safety about that, because
I agree.
that,
That's not good, yeah.
there are reasons why we might feel like that has gonna have to be done by ordinance, but we can discuss that before
Okay.
but I understand the sentiment and trying to do it that way if we
Okay.
can.
Let's move forward. We got our ordinance at 2 hours. Let's just move forward with that. Do we still have the signs and everything? Let's just make sure they fit the look that we have down there now, those Wayfire signs, the brown. And so if we need to improve them.
No, sir, I actually had checked with Malcolm. I don't know what happened to the signs that got taken up, and then the move from the old garage to the new
Yeah.
garage. I thought we kept those signs. I called, he couldn't find them, so they're still looking, but I don't know if they got discarded between the move from old garage to new garage, or if they got discarded during the power upgrades that we went through downtown, but he cannot locate them. I don't know what happened to them.
Okay.
I'll just remember to we'll put it on the agenda, basically an action plan of what we're recommending, and if it's an ordinance that needs to be drafted, then the hope is we'll have one by the January meeting.
All right. Like that. Sounds good. All right. Thank you, Alderman. Now we got town attorney comments. Jim?
Mayor, we had one thing put on the agenda, possible action concerning school property, and I do have a report and one thing to ask you all to take up tonight. First of all, we are currently looking to close on the school property next Wednesday. We have notified the Lynn's that the town is electing to exercise the option. But I would like, just as a formality, to paper this for you all to consider someone making a motion to exercise the option to purchase the property, just so we have a vote on record, and we'll move forward with that.
All right, Alderman, as Jim said, we just need a motion to exercise the option on the Lynn property for the school project.
So moved.
Motion to approve from Alderman Callahan.
Second.
Second from Alderman Countermine. Any discussion? Call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Countermine.
Aye.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
All right, that motion carried, and as Jim and him said, we fulfilled our obligation over the weekend on that. Anything else, Jim?
No, sir.
Okay. That's certainly a project that's moving forward. We had a great, school design meeting. I couldn't be more impressed with Clark Nexton, which purchased Ken Ross. But, we added some expertise in there, and I tell you, the design just gets better and better each time. And we trimmed about 7,000 square feet off the size of the building. You think, oh, we're making it smaller. But, yeah, we're making it smaller, but it's smarter. So even though most of those square footage savings came in the classrooms, the classrooms were designed where they were actually more teaching space and actually still more storage. So just by the way, we reconfigured some of the bathrooms there for the rooms where they adjoin. Really, common sense things. Save 7,000 square feet to that facility, yet have it's more efficient, and that savings is probably a minimum of $1 million. Just that design there. So really pleased with that. All right, citizens' comments. We thought about foregoing citizens' comments just because of the COVID situation. But is there anyone here would like to speak to anything? Okay, very good. All right, now we'll move into some doggone business, old business, discussion and possible action concerning approval of an alternate location of the dog park. And I've kind of made a few notes on here. It's just I like it when they bring decisions before us that are great decisions and save us money, and this is a good one here. I'll let Glenn address it.
And I mean, I have to say, from Mr. Ford to Rachel, that to even Bob Browning to the board, one is I'm very impressed with how passionate we are about a park, and it's a dog park. So originally, you know, there was a Plan A, which was the original plan, which was at a the original access. TDOT, we met out there, and TDOT basically said, your access, at least right now, needs to be over by the current garage. And so I coined it Plan B, because there was an original, so now there's Plan B. And then both of those plans, looking at the expenses of those and looking at the plan itself originally, as you remember, and the circular pattern and the access over the water and parking and then the projected budgets on those. And then the loan money we were talking about, and at the end of the day, it was concluded that we, if I remember, or the board voted to fund through the $1 million general obligation capital outlay was the top 5. The dog park was number 6. At that time, it was discussed there's $75,000 in the general fund that's available for the dog park for FY21, this fiscal year. Then originally, number 6 was, of course, the dog park. I think it's in my other notes of what the remainder was that to actually finish it based on Plan A. Then there's the Plan B. Plan C is Persimmon Ridge as is presented to you tonight. And that, of course, comes in at least projected at less cost than Plan A or Plan B. Talking staff's met. I'm not going to say that we're kind of juggling what to do, but we're definitely all into what's the best and highest use of the dog park, where's the best location. So going back to also to the original application, which had the original destination and the original plan, and especially you had the Randy Boyd Foundation, Civitan monies, and Civitan, I think, you know, was watching what Randy Boyd or that foundation was doing. I left a message for Mr. Boyd. I've not heard back, but that's not, I mean, that wouldn't be unusual. I'm sure he gets thousands of calls, but I've also tried a couple of different emails attempts to say basically if we were to look at an alternate location, are we still okay on the original grant funding? And then I know Rachel's, I think, tried 2 or 3 different sources and still waiting on a response. So
Yeah, I don't think that was that specific when it was awarded, where the actual location might be. I don't think that was even listed in the grant from them.
I think the application did. Yeah, our application did.
Okay.
But right, if they were looking at to say what makes up a dog park, pretty much a fenced area with dogs would get you as a dog park. Of course, our original application and the original plans, whether we call it Plan A and Plan B, are very, very similar. Those have a lot of elements to it. And then Plan C, and you know, Mr. Ford has done a great deal of work on Plan C, along with Rachel and Todd Wood, and going back and forth. So, you know, how do we move forward? And I think you've done so much work. I want you to come up and talk about it as well. But there seems to be a bit of, I'm going to say, the indecisiveness on which one is the best one. Bottom line is, if there's only $75,000 general fund for this year, and there's not a future look into funding it in phases or additional funds to do the dog park as originally presented then that leaves us with $75,000 in the general fund. If the board had just, decided to go a different route and look at additional funding, then, I mean, again, A and B continues to be it. C alternative is basically the $75,000 budget that we've tried earnestly and diligently to maintain a strong budget for that. Some of these decisions, I'm just talking out loud, is better to me as like a workshop, to where we're going back and forth and we're hearing every plan, the pros and the cons, the best and highest use. I know we want to make a decision because for us as staff, we want to implement the project that the board wants us to do. And so we're at a kind of a standstill or, a crossroad to say, which direction are we going? All the plans are good. It does realize the dog park. It does get that. They're just two different locations and two totally different, looks of it and amenities. And
Here's
also-
where my thought,
Shouldn't we have a motion before we discuss it? I mean, us up here, we do a lot of discussing without actually having a motion and a second.
I think, is Craig, you wanting to say?
Yeah, I think Greg should say something. No, I'm talking about us up here.
Okay.
No, you definitely should say something. Yeah, no, I mean.
Continue with staff reporting.
Because I have some things to say, and I think you have some things to say, but we should.
You'd like staff and then the board to be able to go into discussion.
And a second, and then we discuss it, as I understand Robert's Rules of Order. Is that right?
Well, did you not want me to speak?
No. I mean, right now, because if it's about pro or con of his, then I think we should wait until we make a motion.
No, I was going to say, before you cut me off, that the recommendation is Plan C, so I think they have decided on a recommendation, and Craig, I think, is going to address that. And one that I was going to say, what Craig said in his write-up here is that he feels we can construct a quality dog park for less than $75,000. And my thoughts is different from that, but go ahead, Craig.
Of course, the big issue here with the dog park all along has been the development cost. I mean, we were still, had we been able to do the original entry to that dog park on the what's known as the Rosenbaum property, there was still going to be quite a bit of expense in the entryway in and the parking lot, and then also if you're going to have a standalone park down there, I don't see how you do that and not have a restroom facility, which is additional construction. We have to construct a way to get across the creek. And then, they were talking about at some point in time, that park at Rosenbaum initially showed a walking trail that went around it, and then it was like, well, at some point we hope to connect this to other trails. I don't know where you're going to connect this walking trail to another walking trail in Jonesborough with the creek and the railroad crossing and so on. So, and then it was like, well, if we can construct that over there, but then, we don't have to have the walking trail. So again, for Plan A or B, it's construction costs. Plan B basically moved the parking lot, which saved quite a bit of the construction cost of the drive. But then where the parking lot's located now is basically the future development site for other town properties that are there. So with Persimmon Ridge, you almost never go into Persimmon Ridge that you don't see people walking their dogs already. You already have available restroom facilities down there. the construction cost to do a high-quality park is minimal at that Persimmon Ridge site versus the other two sites. And then, you know, we talk about developing it into phases. And again, I would remind the board, when you looked at that project list, I would go back to badly needed funds on the west end of Main Street area to repair some sidewalks. And so it's like, do you spend 200,000, do you spend 300,000, or do you spend 75,000 and still have a quality park? So that was my reasoning for recommending that as an alternative site.
Okay, yeah, that's, you know, I don't know if there's anybody going to advocate for option A, which looks like it's, you know, cost of close to 300,000, or option B, which was like 200,000, or the one recommended, Plan C. So Alderman, you've heard the presentation there. I think last time we discussed that, we asked the staff to go look for other options, and I went down to Persimmon Ridge Park, and it is one of the best things about that park is people use it for a dog park right now. It's just got, it really, you got the entire, all the acreage there for a dog park, not just where we would build this facility, but you've got trails, you know, throughout the park that people walk on now. So it really makes it just a much nicer area. But Alderman, Terry, what's your say on that?
Well, I do not want us to do C. I think, and I've checked, in fact, I went out with Craig, and at first I thought this might work, but the more, and then I went out again and again, and I went out to where the 3 acres are, and for one thing, that's a lot smaller. The other thing, I worry about ADA, people who with disabilities being able to use it, because it is steep, and as dogs run, you'd like to keep an eye on them, and it's got the hills there, so I worry about that. I checked on Willow Springs Park, and they have a organization called Friends of the Johnson City Dog Park Association, like we have Friends of the Library and Friends of JRT. And it's a 501c3, and I think, knowing how people love dogs, and I include myself in that, but I know a lot of other people that do too, I think we would get a lot of community support, and I think that the park, as an original site, could be done for less money, and it would be more attractive to people and could serve a lot more people. I think we're underestimating, especially as our town grows, the number of people that have dogs that want to run them, and having the larger space, in my opinion, and the ability to increase facilities out there is what I would like us to. I agree with Glenn, and he and I talked about this. I think having a workshop and really getting opinions of the users of the facility is what we should do. And I use several other examples. We, as you know, Chuck, you were on it, we had a lot of pushback about how much money we were spending on a senior center. And now we have one of the best ones in the region, and everybody's saying how great it is, and we do all kinds of good things there, and people from all over want to visit there because we did it what has become known as the Jonesborough way. And if we're gonna, I would rather wait, if we can, if Randy Boyd will let us wait a year, I'd rather wait and budget the money or see if we can. I think personally, and now I'm just speaking for myself, that we could raise another $10,000, $15,000 of private money towards that. And I would commit to that if you'd let me, if we decide to go that way.
That puts us at 90,000. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, well, and then we've got, now, was the other estimate shared with anybody? The one you sent me? From Rachel?
I don't think so.
Because it
No,
looks like
I know I
there,
sent it directly to you, 'cause
the
you're-
estimate was a total of $126,000. And if you look, and to Craig's credit, I mean, he's already saved us some money on the bridges. And right now for dog park, we have $125,000. I think if we could do it for even $130,000, we'd only need $45,000 extra dollars from the money that we're borrowing to do these projects, to do close to what we originally planned, at the location we originally planned. And we don't even know if Randy, or if the Boyd Foundation will okay something that's smaller, because it is substantially smaller. That's that's my opinion.
Yeah, my professional opinion, I can't answer that, but, because I don't know, just being familiar with the grant, the goal to create a dog park is the application process. And the only reason I was bringing up workshop is, we all talk about different projects, and this one continues for some reason to be, we keep poking at, one day it's, this amount, and then we go a little bit harder and it's a little bit more, or now we're saving money on a parking lot, or, plan B is there's as Mr. Ford said, there is a master plan for the expansion of the garage that has to be considered. We can't just disregard a master plan that we're looking forward to in the future and say, well, that's down the road. And that's why I'm saying there's so many variables in this one. In my best professional judgment, when it goes that direction, and it just, this, as far as a board meeting, is hard to get into the meat of everything to where, if that's a direction of the board to have more discussion on it, but I'm not in favor of waiting a year. I'm not in favor of 2 years, but I am in favor of finding the best and highest use location and the board being supportive of it, and then we go to work on it. And that's what we're needing.
Well, that Plan A, is that even an option if the state will not allow us to come off the road?
I would not recommend Plan A.
That was
I think that's more of a
expensive
tortured.
option.
Yeah, that was the most expensive.
That's more of a tortured situation. Would TDOT, change their mind sometime later? I don't know. I know that I'm physically in the field on all these plans, and that's what they said. The Plan B, there is savings there. These are all projections. We can't, our budget always is going to be a projection. We're hoping we're going to come in. And I know Mr. Ford is, like me, we're like adamant trying to stay on track on a budget, especially with Ms. Miller, Abby. It's the same. We're trying to stay on track. There's just a lot of variables in these plans.
Well, now, the issue with Plan B that I see, and we've all discussed it, is just you're mixing our truck traffic, with pedestrian traffic. We've got the future expansion of our garage facilities in that area. And just from talking to some of the people out in the public, a lot of people have said, hey, that's further away from my home, because a lot of people live, people go to the Persimmon Ridge Park now. They live closer to that. That facility would be on the outskirts of our city limits, and it's near a wastewater plant, so it's further away from housing.
My dad's not alive, passed away a long time ago, and he'd sit me down and he'd say pros and cons, and I'd be like, get a little uncomfortable because I knew it was coming. And I feel like it seems like this process should be pros and cons of A, B, and C in one forum to discuss them all, get all the details. Have we uncovered everything? Have we hit all the variables? And I know not every project is going to be 100%, always correct on every single thing. You might hit rock, you might hit another issue, but I do think if the board, I'm just throwing out, if the board's not ready to come up with a consensus tonight, then staff needs to come up with action plans on each one of them, the pros and the cons.
Well, to me, I went and walked the facilities down there, and to me, the best thing about Persimmon Ridge Park, and I probably agree with Terry here, it is a smaller area, but it's, if you think beyond the fenced area, it's actually the entire park, which is how many acres? How many? 130 acres. So, and people are walking their dogs now, including Terry and good friend Jerome Fitzgerald is always down there with his dog every day. And, but there's also more land near that park that maybe we can, purchase. I think if we needed to expand it in phases, there's probably ways to do that. To me, getting the park set up sooner rather than later is the ideal thing, and then build on it in the future. And I think there's land down there that we can purchase to expand it out into near Persimmon Ridge Park. My thought is we got $75,000 budgeted. We got a little bit of extra money we need to plan for. To me, we take some of the loan money that we've got, add $25,000 to it. We got $100,000 to put into a quality park down there at Persimmon Ridge Park. $100,000 left over. And yes, I value the kids that have used that facility down there since the 1970s. I think we need to take that extra money and put it into the Persimmon Ridge facility for the kids. There's a lot more kids play down there than dogs walk, but that's where I would go to $100,000 on a dog park in that location, and then in phases expand it as time and money allows. Alderman, what's your thanks there, Virginia?
We need to check with also Kiwanis. Are they gonna be okay?
Civitan.
Civitan, I'm sorry.
I spoke to Glenn about that, and I think that we definitely need to give them the courtesy. Their contract with us, they haven't given us the money yet, but if I remember correctly, they kind of tied everything to the Boyd Foundation money. So, I will say, there's been some shakiness here and there with them, so it's their money still at this point, so they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And second thing is, what restrooms are you going to be using if you go to Persimmon Ridge Park? There's none down there in the bottom.
Not at
Yeah, the field house at that first ball field right there has restrooms.
That's a long way to walk.
You got the old rec building up there that has a restroom facility. There's probably some updates.
But can you access it?
We would need to update some of the facilities down there, but we should be doing that anyway. At least it's a quicker and more economical way to get it going, and if we want to build a nicer restroom facility, near the cabin there, you could. But there's a restroom on the hill up there, and you have, like Craig said, there's male and female down at the first athletic field. And I don't think you'll have people using this fenced-in area for sure, but you're going to have people still walking their dogs, where they are today, all through wetlands and over to the fields and so forth, the trails. Stephen?
I think there's a lot of valid points brought up between everybody. I personally haven't been down to Persimmon Ridge to look at the new property. I think there's pros and cons, and quite frankly, me personally, I don't think I'm ready to make a decision on it tonight. It's something that I think that we should do a strategy session on. And saving money is a big thing. Taking capital and putting in some of our other projects, like Persimmon Ridge, is huge. So I think we step back and come up with 3-4 different ideas and go into a strategy session and see if we can kind of come together as a board and make a decision.
If I can, sorry.
Ed?
Thank you, Glenn. Just I guess a couple of questions. Rachel, if Persimmon Ridge was used, could the water feature that's going to be, or that was proposed for Rosenbaum, could that be done at Persimmon Ridge?
My understanding is yes.
Okay.
We discussed that.
And so it would be some additional cost, I guess, but it could be done.
It's actually, would it not be it's a lot easier, I think, there, because we got water for the campground right nearby and power.
It would be about the same cost there, Mayor. You wouldn't want to use the city water unless you use the recirculating pump, so then you would have to have a little bit of a pump house and that kind of thing. So, you would still probably be, I would recommend in the long run, it'd be better to just dig a well there as well, because they've got the one big drain tile that goes over into the wetland area. So if TDEC says you can drain that water out of a dog park into a creek, then surely there's not an issue with draining into a wetland area.
Yeah, I personally think that Persimmon Ridge is a better setting for a dog park. But like I said, there's a lot of different pros and cons, and I would like to see the dog park be over there at Persimmon Ridge personally. But you know, just because there are expansion projects in the future, and yeah, we don't want one to get in the way of the other down there.
I've got there's a couple more questions. So in the Boyd grant, was there any language related to 353 State Route 353 or the fleet maintenance site? There was nothing that said that if we get the money from Boyd that we would go to 353.
No, we used that location and that plan for that site as part of our application, yes.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so there is a need to at least hear what the Boyd Foundation is
Correct.
saying. And then the last thing that would be on my mind in terms of a question is, what is our vision for Persimmon Ridge? Is Persimmon Ridge going to be I'm going to call it a multifaceted, multivaried facility, park? So one area is a dog park. The Parks and Rec Board wants an RV park. We want ball fields. We got a water park. We've got walking trails. Can it be all things to all people? If you have an RV park there, I mean, are people going to be frustrated because there's people walking their dogs? Are local people going to be frustrated because there's tourists in the area? I mean, have we thought about that? So what is the long-term vision for Persimmon Ridge? Are we going to have a situation where you have a major clash because you've got ball games going on, you've got the RV area, and now you've got a traffic situation and people parking? I mean, it's just thoughts. So what's the long-term vision for Persimmon Ridge? Can that property handle everything that we're talking about? On top of that, we've got a food pantry there as well. Do they conflict? Do they not conflict? I'd like to see, and we talked about this a couple of meetings ago, an actual plan for Persimmon Ridge. And because, again, a couple of meetings ago, we had a very, I thought, fruitful conversation. Mayor led the conversation about the potential of Persimmon Ridge. So does the dog park, does it amplify or does it hinder? And I think the case could be made either way, but I just think it would be to our advantage if we could spend a little time just ironing out, again, the pros and cons, but again, an effective plan for Persimmon Ridge. So I mean, not a year, not elongated time frame, but I think giving ourselves a little bit of time to just think through what our potential could be, I don't think that'd hurt us.
I think our first thing that we need to do is back up and stop until we see whether Boyd Foundation is going to agree to move this park. We can't do anything on this. If we do it now and then they come back and say, no, you know, you can't have the money, then is the other group going to say, Boyd backed out, I'm backing out? Then we're going to be stuck with nothing. I think we need to just postpone this until we get the answers from Boyd first. And you all, staff, come back with plans. So we can visually see, not just a plan of a layout of land like this is.
Well, I agree. It's good. We're certainly not going to come to an agreement now, and I think we got to think about how much money we want to invest. To me, that's kind of where it starts. I think Persimmon Ridge would, as Adam said so well there, I think it would actually elevate because they're down there anyway now, and it's at the entrance. Traffic shouldn't be too much of an issue, but it's just going to make that park even better, I think, or I wouldn't want to do it down there. But to me, we need to think about how much money do we truly want to devote to that when we've got other needs, and if what we're reading is $300,000 and $200,000, I think that's entirely too much. And I don't think just because we might lose $25,000, I don't think we go out and spend $200,000. And so I'd rather give away the $25,000 and just invest $100,000 ourselves instead of spending another $175,000. But determining where that park is, if we need to take a couple more months to do that, we do it. But we also need to think about how much money do we want to devote to it.
I'd like to make a motion that we postpone this until next month, give staff time to come back with the answers on the Boyd Foundation and on the Siftan group, and come back with a plan.
All right, you got a motion to postpone this discussion.
Second.
We got a second from Alderman Callahan, the motion from Alderman Causey, and that gives us time to get an answer back from the Boyd Foundation, and then we'll kind of know where to proceed at that point, and we can still explore other options out there in the meantime.
I do have another question. Not really related to the dog park, but related to the baseball facilities down there, because I'm also a advocate of that. When the school is built, isn't there a substantial amount of money built in each year for maintenance of fields and stuff like that that could be used as part of what we're talking about here to really make that, again, top notch in Persimmon Ridge as well as out at the new school? Isn't there money every year that we're going to be getting?
There is a
That's to maintain, the facility at the new school site, and also, part of the discussion that, I had, it allows us to, take some money each year and make sure we're maintaining Persimmon Ridge Park, because that park is used by the majority of county kids. So, it's going to be, hopefully, reoccurring money. That does end at some point, but reoccurring money to put into those parks when it starts.
And could that money, Chuck, be used for improvements at Persimmon Ridge Park?
Well, we've not, I had, there is a pretty good little chunk of money there, but we don't know, with what we've committed to do for the county, in terms of taking care of the Boones Creek School and all their grounds out there.
Right.
I don't know if it's gonna be, it certainly is not a windfall. And
Right.
whether, we won't really know until once we start taking care of the Boones Creek School and that facility out there, because to me it's a monster. And then the Jonesborough School projects, 2.5, 3 years away. And, I don't think we wait on Persimmon Ridge Park. With the updates we can do down there, we can do a dog park, and we can, I was talking with Greg, we can put $100,000 into the athletic facilities down there and be perfectly fine. And,
You mentioned buying more land. How much would that cost?
well, there's, useless land right near, I think at one point was wanting to be gifted to us, I think, from what, little discussion Craig and I had, but it's land that's not worth that much, but it's flat, and it's right beside it, right at the entrance, and until you explore it, you don't know what it would cost, but it would probably be, I'm sure, relatively cheap. It's not used for anything now other than cattails, and, but
Isn't that, is it classified as wetlands?
So there, and then you got the old doctor's office up on the hill that's sitting there covered in vines, and so there's ways we can go. But at some point, it's about how much money you want to spend.
Was there any more questions for me?
Any more questions about the dog park? That's a good discussion. All right, we got a motion and a second. Madam Recorder, call for the vote, please.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Kellermeyer.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
All right, motion carried, so we'll keep bouncing that around. All right, next item on the agenda as we move into new business is discussion of possible action concerning approval of a resolution setting the Board of Mayor and Alderman 2021 meeting dates. Alderman, has anybody got any issues with any dates listed there?
Mayor, the only day that I have conflicting is May 10th. And I would suggest that we move it to May 3rd or the 17th.
All right, Alderman, you heard Stephen there, 17th. I wouldn't have any issues moving it there. Staff, you got any issues with the 17th?
I have none, Mayor.
Okay, Alderman? Okay, we'll make that note. Alderman, anything else? All right, if there's no more, I'll take a motion to approve the recommendation with the one change of the May 10th to May 17th.
Move to approve, Mayor.
All right, got a motion to approve from Alderman Dixon, a second from Alderman Callahan. Any other discussion? All right, call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
Alderman Kellermeyer.
Aye.
All right, motion carried. All right, next item on the agenda is discussion of possible action concerning approval of a contractor to undertake JRT improvements. Looks like some necessary work down there. Trying to keep that project moving forward.
And so grateful to the Sonia King Trust.
Yes.
Wonderful lady and really cared about the arts and her father, what was it? Mr. Martin.
Yeah.
Mr. Martin, very, very supportive of Jonesborough. Very grateful for their generosity.
All right, we've got the presentation there. We've got 5 recommendations. Jim, can they be all taken as one?
They can, Mayor, but I would like for the minutes to reflect that one thing you're being asked to do is find that because of the immediate need and the fact that we have a very, very limited period of time to get in there and do these, we're taking the roof off a section of the building. We can't do that while programming is going on. You have this limited time period. That's the only reason that this is allowable, because of that limited time period. So we want you to make sure you found that. So I'm just stating that, so it'll be in the minutes.
All right, we'll make sure that's in the minutes. Alderman, any discussion on this?
I think, dealing with Don Bacon in the past, he does excellent work, and he's a good option for the town of Jonesborough.
Very good. I take that as a motion.
Yes, sir.
All right, got a motion to approve the 1 through 5 recommendations.
Second.
Got a second from Alderman Countermine. Any other discussion? All right. Call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Countermine.
Aye.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
All right, motion carried. Now moving into 7C. Discussion and possible action concerning approval of the schematic design for the new Jonesborough's K-8 school project. And I'm sure you read through there. If you didn't get a chance to finish all of it, please do, because there's some great information in there. And again, I was very impressed with the architects working on our plan. It's really good to get in there and look and see how the classrooms are configured and some of the thoughts they put into, the flow of the students and traffic flow, and really just the appearance of the building. Glenn, what's your thoughts there?
This is such a large and exciting project, I felt I need to probably just stand up here. I do want to say very impressed with the whole project. The project manager, Mr. Browning's doing a fantastic job. He very, very, very detailed. Just so you know, it's just, it's an agenda presentation, but there's hours and hours and hours of meetings or staff time, or especially Mr. Browning meeting with multiple folks as far as school staff, and really trying to get an input of almost like per class basis of what's needed and what they want to make it a very desirable school. The mayor is chairman of the design committee, and those meetings are going excellent. I mean, you can see how thick this information is. So I just think we're progressing very well. Definitely recommending the approval of the schematic design. And after this, we will go into more of the engineering design and really start looking into construction phases of this. So we're on very good track with the progress of the project.
Yeah, we're kind of putting together the costs are kind of coming together right now. So some of these decisions we've made in the last 30 days really, are going to factor into that, just like that trimming 7,000 square feet off. But one thing I liked was, I think it was Tommy Bertelson probably brought this forward, or somebody, maybe the architect, but damage-resistant sheetrock.
Sure.
And when I toured Boones Creek School, you're walking through and you hear echoes, and you're thinking, man, why are we still building schools out of this cinder block walls? It just can't be great for sound. And so I remember asking some question, why are we building all these interior walls with cinder blocks? And that's just the way we do it. And as a cost saving measure, but it's also acoustically going to be so much better, is damage resistant sheetrock, or structurally going to be just as strong, but it's going to really help the sound in there. And it's going to shave some cost of the project. It takes a long time to lay a lot of brick and a lot of cinder blocks, so sheetrock goes up much quicker. So those things all save money in the long run.
And my understanding as far as maintenance or repair on that type of product is very good as well as a cost savings.
Yeah, yeah. Alderman, what you all think about did you have a chance to read through there, and you got any comments on any of this?
I'm really impressed by it.
And Glenn's right, Bob has done just an amazing job on getting feedback from all the school staff. He's met with Dr. Flannery and a lot of principals and teachers just to get their feedback, and that's why we've been able to, we got a recent school built in Boones Creek, and we're able to actually perfect on something that's pretty good to begin with, and Bob's been very valuable
I'll
there.
bring it up. I think they just need to get feedback, unless there's, well, they can, that's different. Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
The one thing that, Mr. Brandon gets so excited about this, I think there may have been something lost during our discussion of the schematic design, but you all have a contractual duty to get feedback from the school board and the county commission prior to approving a design. And that has not happened. What the intent was, or what my understanding was, we have you all look at it, and then there'll probably be a report that goes to them for them to see it. But you have not received any feedback yet. And I think this relationship has gone so smoothly, and I don't want to do anything that would damage that. So I had not understood that you all needed to approve the schematic design. It's moving forward. The design committee's approved it, so now it'll go to construction drawings with the architect. There's not a step in the contract anywhere, in any of the contracts, for the BMA to approve at this point. So what I had originally understood was going to be done tonight was they were just going to get feedback from you all. So I checked with the town administrator to make sure he didn't know of any reason that we're required to approve it tonight. And I don't think there is any such requirement. I know there's not in the contract.
We could just express support for what the design committee is to come up with so far.
I think that would be fine, but I just want to avoid the term approval, because, again, we need to respect the partners that you're in this with, and you do have a contractual duty to get their input before you're approving.
At the final point, for sure.
Well, it absolutely at the final approval, but I think that, if I were you all, I wouldn't want it in the paper tomorrow, and school board members waking up to read that you all have approved a design when they're expecting to get to, they gave up the right to approve that design to you all, but they did it. One of the conditions that they did that under was that you would get their input. So my suggestion would be that you just give the input. You certainly can give a nod to the design committee, but that you not formally have any kind of motion to approve.
Like a vote of confidence, we're happy with
I would, that would be fine. That's a vote of confidence more in the design committee than it is in the plan, and then the feedback can be, as a group individually, that you like the design, which I think that's what you're expressing, and that's fine. But it occurred to me that we might need to be a little careful about it. And I'm sorry that I didn't catch that in my pre-meeting review of everything, but I did not realize that we were actually voting to approve, or you all were going to be considering voting to approve.
I'm more surprised Virginia didn't catch it, because she catches stuff. Well, I think we're all, I always like getting feedback. Has anybody got any issues with anything or any questions about anything they read or saw in that packet? If not, I think just expressing our support and vote of confidence in the design committee is certainly appropriate.
I can't catch everything.
Okay, good for you. All right, everybody good? All right, well, let's let the record show that the board supports the work the design committee has put in so far, and we give them a vote of confidence to continue. All right, and we'll pass on from that one, move into 7D. Oh, this was a good one. This is what we get good emails on, too. Between parking and dog parks, and ballparks. All right. Next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action concerning first reading of an ordinance in regards to off-street parking issues in Mill Creek subdivision. I think other than making Glenn move down there and become a patrolman,
Community
ordinance is the next best thing.
I didn't catch that. It should read no on-street parking.
What's that?
Yeah.
First reading, no on-street parking. We don't want to eliminate.
Everybody's gonna be the road.
That would be
We
problematic.
eliminate all the, yeah, so I won't go back through the background as many times as letters, but basically, over in Mill Creek subdivision or Idasu Drive, and just, in 3 years, there's been different discussions, there's been ordinances passed, and, on-street parking, whether or not it's emergency vehicles trying to get through because both sides of the road are being parked on, or it's just people parking on the street that is basically blocking the sight distance of someone leaving their driveway, to repetitive pictures and emails and text messages based on Mill Creek subdivision. So looking at it as pros and cons, the cons to this would be eliminating on-street parking in the subdivision. That was the original ordinance, 20-foot roads, 24-foot roads, and then basically when Mill Creek subdivision started to develop and there was the 24-foot roads, all of a sudden there was an ordinance that said, you know, if it's 24-foot wide road, then you can have on-street parking. You know all the emails and the issues, and it's going over and over again. The neighbor across the street, to where a lot of the from the Johnsons across the street, that's not the only issue, but different neighbors, and I've tried to, you know, administratively and diplomatically say, hey, can we talk? Can we partner by regular mail, then by certified mail? And there was no response on either one. And so there's definitely, yes, Mayor.
I will say, I was pleased when because I drive in that subdivision often, that the last time I drove in there, which was probably Saturday, I think, there was nobody parked on the street. I thought, hey, Glenn's got something done here. But who knows, might have been a lucky day.
Okay, well, I did it. So, but as I can say, downtown parking was resolved, but it's not. So that's more of the con. There's definitely that con of a prohibition of parking on street. But I've gone through it over and over again. There is no other solution that I can think of other than being so creative on a unique situation that we be coming up with new prohibitions that someone somewhere else may not even understand. And so this is the black and white of a law. You park on the street. I think there has been, in the past, there's been other probably agenda presentations that talks about if maybe if there was a party or something was, you know, a funeral was going on. But this is getting to the point where some people are basically storing their vehicles on street. There's another provision that talks about 72-hour parking, and beyond that, I mean, that you need we'll say the chief's approval. But again, I honestly just monitoring the situation, which is easy when you have residents that are affected and they're constantly providing you feedback, and you see that just cars just change places, and so that's what we're at. I wish that was actually that I had resolved it by a letter. That would be great.
That street, you know, it's got a pretty sharp little curve in it. It's not, and it's probably, you know, and there's a lot of homes there. It's got several curves, and so it is dangerous. So it makes sense to eliminate that on-street parking. Alderman, what you think?
I think I agree with Glenn.
I do too.
Okay. Stephen, do I take as a motion to approve the recommendation?
Yes, sir.
All right, we got a motion to approve the recommendation as written on first reading.
Second.
A second from Alderman Countermine. Any other discussion? Call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Countermine.
Aye.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
Aye.
All right, motion carried. All right, moving right along, getting into the Jackson Theater project again, 7E, discussion and possible action concerning approval of GRC's proposal of change order number 5 for completion of the exterior walls of the Jackson Theater. So there's many reasons why we need to do that. Good. Glenn?
So, as you know, this is just another project that is a great project, but it's also one of those projects that with COVID that we really have slowed down. Not having inmate labor since March on any of our projects is really having us, as they say, pivoting to different ways of funding. You've got to basically get the brick up to get the place dry. The Historic Zoning Commission did approve the brick itself with basically the mortar, but the look of it at their last meeting to make kind of what we call the new part, the addition, to where the bricks will blend as best as possible based on the current brick, which is the older brick, which is aged, of course. I'm really up here to see if you have any questions about the math of this. I tried my hardest to put it down in black and white on what we're looking at. The key page was what Ms. Miller Abbey provided was more of the Jackson Theater update, which is just to let you know kind of where we are with available funding and where we are with current obligations. Right now, GRC is looking, and I don't know when, we're hoping to get it soon, that GRC will come back and let us know what is it going to take to finish the Jackson Theater complex. That's what I've probably been promising, and we're trying. We're diligently trying to do that, including Mr. Browning, to get a figure of that, and not just a figure at some point, not just on the physical structure, but also the contents within. Basically, I'm looking at what's it going to take to where we're parking downtown and we're opening the doors to go see a performance. That, I think, is the final cost. But GRC is going to give us a pretty good number. I'm hoping, next week. It could be tomorrow. It could be in my email right now. We're very, very, very close to a cost. When that's realized, we'll have to go pretty much back to RD, rural development, and look at a funding source for any type of additions. The Sonia King money and other funds that are available to us or a part of this, there's a lot of what we say commingling or mixing. Thank goodness that there is, as I think you had said, that foundation or that fund has helped with the project, and this is just to continue the work. We've got to get the brick up. We've got to close it in. We're working on the facade, finishing that up. I think the marquee is going to be up sometime, hopefully maybe mid-January, and it'll be lit up. I mean, that's our goal, is to light it up, and it's live. So it's not open for business yet, but that's the direction that we're going in. So this continues the project forward.
All right, and we certainly want that to happen. Alderman, you've heard the presentation, you've read right up there, and the recommendation. One thing I'd like to see, that the Eastman Credit Union contribution was really nice to see that in there. I kind of forgot about that, but that's certainly nice. And then, of course, as Adam had said, the Sonia King Foundation and James Martin, that's huge for the town of Jonesborough.
So, are we fairly confident we have enough money to finish the project once they give us the total?
No.
I mean, I thought when I first got on the board that we voted on a budget for the whole project, and so we don't know where we're at in that budget right now.
No, not to finish what I'll call the Jackson Theater complex. There's not enough available monies that's going to be projected. If that cost is, let's say, $1.5 million or $2 million to finish it, we do not have those funds.
That's crazy.
Right now.
How would we not know that?
I think the problem was, Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the problem was an old building, Stephen, and we had to do a lot more than we thought we were going to have to do, didn't we, Craig? For the Jackson Theater? I mean, why the cost is a lot more?
One of the big issues now is I think a lot of those projected.
Cost of the material.
Callahan was based on
Labor.
having the
Inmate.
inmate
Yeah.
labor to do, a lot of the I try to talk to the prison officials every other month or so to get updates, but.
Yeah,
you know,
it's not gonna
like,
happen anytime soon.
Do you let the project set, or do you try to continue on? So I do know, that's where we're at with a lot of the, the funding shortages now.
Right.
Is not having that inmate labor.
And
That's what I was gonna ask.
we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars that was projected in inmate
In that
labor,
inmate
which
labor.
historically, normal, pre-COVID, that would have been realized, because we
That's
have
right.
talented folks that come here to do work from the, from the prison and the jails.
So this will essentially get it basically battened up and out of the weather, and so if for whatever reason we didn't secure the funds a couple months down the road, then we're not going to let the place rot down in the meantime, right?
Correct. I mean, it's everybody. I think the goal is for the Jackson Theater Complex to be a success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liken it to the Persimmon Ridge conversation. That's an attraction. That's a tourism attraction. That is something to where when you put money into it, it's going to draw people. And so the Jackson, all the three buildings together to make the complex is the same. We all want it to be a success. And honestly, if this was pre-COVID,
Yep.
it'd be a better financial snapshot of it. But I don't have that report today. I'd love to, but we're not getting very good or positive information on inmate labor. So we pivot again and provide you with the best financial facts, which, my hope would be is by January, I have very good, solid financial facts to give to the board. Because
Yeah.
we've been talking about this since budget or pre-budget time.
Yeah.
And I don't want to pull a number out of a hat.
Well, I kind of look at at the end, when it's constructed, what's the value to the town of Jonesborough? To me, it's that at the end, we're going to have a facility that's going to be worth more than what we put into it. We were gifted a building there by a couple of families that's, was, I think, worth $400,000. So to me, we're starting out $400,000 ahead. So after it's all said and done, we're going to have a facility that we're on the plus side with, and it's going to pay dividends to the town for years to come. So it's a little bit of a pain right now, but that's part of dealing with historic structures, and we'll pay as we go. And at the end, we'll be okay.
Alderman Causey?
Glenn, are we aware of any grants or things like that might be available?
You have the illustrious Bob Browning working on this thing,
Okay.
so
I figured
we're we're finishing up or wrapping up a grant right now, the CDBG facade grant that gets us that great front. The details of the place is amazing, but yes, I mean we're seeking, whether it be grants or competitive financing, and we are in competition for Jonesborough to be a destination place.
Good.
And whether it's the corridor of downtown, we have to be competitive. That's what other cities around us and other places are doing. They're looking to be competitive, and we have I believe, a competitive edge to just a unbelievable downtown and the draw that this could be. And again, you can see how COVID has financially changed the variable or changed the game a bit for Jonesborough right now.
So the price we're getting from GRC will be like a turnkey finished building, right? Is that what you're saying?
I'll say that my expectations is GRC turnkey as far as the physical structure of the building, but it's almost like they've talked about the school project. Sometimes if you turn it upside down, like what's connected, what's not. So those kind of things like concession or a popcorn machine or certain amenities of within that building, I'll make sure that the board is aware of that. GRC.
Physical building itself.
Yeah, yes. So physically being able to go in there from, the carpet or tile or bathrooms and such, that it needs to be a detailed outline so that we know what's the other alternatives that we'll have to know to price. does GRC comprise some things that we start poking at? Sure. But it'll be, my idea is project what is it to open the door, which
Is there-
turnkey would be opening the door to go to a performance.
Is there a plan for that, like the school design is? Is it at 1117? That great big one? Okay.
We can pretty much get any plan 11 by 17.
Yeah, it'd be
I
nice if
can,
we could see
we can, absolutely.
what it's
I'll
gonna
make,
look like.
I'll make sure I give you an update before the next meeting and provide 11 by 17s of the schematics. And again, there is a lot of detail. It's in the historic district. The project gets down to the corner of a brick to how inset is the door. I mean, you probably don't want to know all that.
No.
But that's how
Just the
detailed.
physical
Yeah.
See
Yeah.
what it's gonna look like.
I'll get you everything I have on the design.
All right, appreciate that. Did we get a motion in a second to approve anything here? Do we need to?
I think there was a motion, but I can't remember a second.
Motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
Got a motion to approve the recommendation from Alderman Callahan, a second from Alderman Causey. Any other discussion? Call for the vote, Madam Recorder.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
Alderman Countermine.
Aye.
Alderman Dixon.
All right, motion carried. All right, next item on the agenda, and the timing is probably not good with the discussions we've had. We've had a lot of great questions, which is always good. But discussion and possible action concerning approval of a resolution for change in the town's charter. And I'll just admit that that's some changes that I've expressed to Jim, and I'll run through some of the reasoning behind that and see if the aldermen agree. Part of the reason there's some changes in the charter, basically it's reverting back to the way the charter was before the most recent changes. And I was somewhat party to those past changes. So I'd like to correct some things that I think, when you see them play out in real life, you think, I wish it wasn't quite like that. One area in there where it requires a alderman or a board member to resign their seat if they're going to seek another elected office as county commissioner or for any county office or even for a state office. And I feel like that's a restriction that's too great for our board. I call that, right now, the way our charter is set up, to me, it's an Incumbent Protection Act. It's to protect incumbents throughout the county and throughout the state, and I just don't think that's, fair for any municipality, and Jonesborough is probably one of the few that has that in there. It might be the only one in the area to have that in there. So to me, that kind of restriction on our board to protect the incumbents is not necessary. So I'd love to see us, revert that back to what it was before. And it also has in there any town or any employee of the town of Jonesborough who seeks a run for as a town elected official. I do think that remains because there's some conflicts there. But it also goes on to say, or a seat in the Tennessee legislature. I'm not sure why someone working for the town of Jonesborough can't represent our state. If anything, that's a plus for the town of Jonesborough. So to me, a small change in that charter to eliminate an employee for running for the Tennessee legislature should be something we do, because right now it would require them to resign their job, and they might not even win. So same thing with an elected official who chooses to run for a county office, trustee, property assessor, anything. If they run for it and lose, they're out both positions. So I'm not sure why we have that restrictions on there any longer, so hopefully the board will consider that and look to that as some changes. And then just knowing, what else is out there around us, and most of these things I thought about, really it's not going to impact our board here today. It doesn't impact me, but I always like to think ahead and think, what's the board's going to be faced with 6 years from now or 10 years from now? What can we do now to make sure what others did for us 30 years ago, what can we do now for the ones the next 10, 20, or 30 years who might take over? And one of those things we've got in there for, compensation of officers. And right now, I think on our board, nobody takes any compensation. And our compensation in the town of Jonesborough is probably as low, if not the lowest in the area. It's, $100, a couple $100. And Surrounding areas, nobody's excessive around here, but they can go up to 500 or something. But my thought about the whole issue with the charter there is that if a board in the future, wishes to raise that from $100 to $120 or $150, it'd have to go to the vote of the people. And I feel like the effort that we'd have to go in to vote just to pass a $25 increase onto the board, or a $50 increase or whatever, is just silly to require a vote of the public. I think that we can trust a board in the future with what I would call guardrails. If a compensation today is $100 and $200, if every election cycle, if it can grow no greater than 50%, then you're talking about $100 becoming, and sometimes in the future board wants to raise it to $150, that's allowed. That'd be the greatest increase is 50%. So 100 to 150, eventually go from 150 to 225 if a board chooses. Even if the board chooses then, it takes a 2/3 vote of the board. But that just keeps these modest little increases that boards might have to pass in the future just to be competitive with other places, to encourage people to run for alderman. It just makes it a little bit easier and not so restrictive. I just think a vote of the people there is probably excessive. And even that within there, I did put that it caps at some point, just to protect. So I'm not a fan of overcompensating people, so there's a cap on that. So 20 years down the road, if our boards are faced up against that cap, if they wanted to go beyond that cap, they would have to, at that point, change their charter and go to the Tennessee legislature to get it changed. So there's that protection in there. So to me, I just like to remove that onerous restriction on future boards and our boards if we chose. So that was some of the things, just reading through that somewhat bothered me. We had a good, we had Alderman Fitzgerald served our town well. He's a county commissioner now, but he had to resign his seat before he ever knew if he was going to be elected county commissioner. And Jerome's a very valuable person here in Jonesborough, and I'm glad he won. I'm glad he's a county commissioner, but he shouldn't have been forced to resign his seat. Maybe if you're victorious, you could, but to have to resign your seat before you ever actually win seems onerous. But and why a alderman or somebody could not choose to run for the Tennessee legislature, I'm not sure. We got a great one in there now, Rebecca Alexander, that I supported wholeheartedly, and as she said, she plans on putting good 8 years in there, so I hope she wins all 8 years. But if 8 years from now wants to run for the Tennessee, run for that seat, they'd have to resign their seat to go run for it, and I just don't think that's right. If somebody wanted to challenge somebody, they'd have to resign their seat to do it, and they might not win. So that's some thoughts on the changes I'd recommend there in the charter. Again, just to remove those protections that incumbents have, including myself. And I'm open to take any questions, or we can discuss it some. Any thoughts, any negatives? I'd love to hear any negative towards that as well.
Of course, I worked for the town when this was changed. I wasn't sure why it was done, but when I went back and I've looked it over and done a lot of thinking about it, and I just feel that the previous board did this for a reason, a good decision, and I think you were on the committee that did it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I know the reason.
And I feel that if we go and change it again, we're just going to go backwards again at this time, and I just don't feel like that this would be a good move at this point.
Anyone else? I guess, what we've had, a town employee, Danny Edens, who's, a county commissioner and also a town employee. It's worked out. It's been a blessing. It's been great for the town of Jonesborough. So I'm not sure why we want to protect incumbents in Washington County and the state of Tennessee. To me, it's about why protect them. So, and I was part of that when it got changed, and to me, you guys should have the freedom to do what you want.
I think if we, if I decided I wanted to run for one of the offices downtown, and I didn't get it, and I was still on the board, would they be vindictive back toward the town? I just think that it's protection for the town if we leave it like it is, and I'd like to make a motion to deny it. Whether I get a second or not.
Well, my thoughts there is that we existed as a town for all the years before without protecting incumbents, and we would, and in many cases, I'm sure the thing is, if somebody runs for an office, you resign your seat whether you win or lose. So you can put in there that if somebody won their seat, but if they lost the race, they'd resign their seat. But if you're worried about the relationships of someone, but
I'll second it so we can discuss it. And I'd like to, Jim, were you on that committee?
Yes, sir.
Would you feel comfortable giving us your rationale on why that was all passed? If not, then it's all right, but I know
Well,
you
and of course, the
it was you
committee-
and John Rambo and Chuck, right?
The committee didn't pass it, for one thing. The committee drew up
Drew it up, that's what I
recommendations.
mean. You were on
There
the
were
one,
probably, I believe there were about 26 changes that were made in the charter, so these were only 3 of the 26 or so. I guess the only thing I would say with respect to the one that's been talked about the most tonight was that my understanding was that it was done in order to facilitate the town's relationship with other governmental entities, not necessarily individual people, but governmental entities such as our work with the state, our work with the county. But that's my recollection, but I think, yeah, I can make arguments on both sides, but that's my recollection of why I was in favor of recommending the change.
is there, I think I talked to Glenn. Glenn, did you have a chance to check to see if there's any other municipalities here that's got these same restrictions on?
There really isn't. The majority are probably like the original was when it was silent.
Yeah.
I mean, just even the neighboring, I know in Irwin that an alderman ran for the mayor position, and of course didn't have to resign. That's been the typical that I remember. A lot of places, especially when you look at the county levels, a lot of city employees or even county employees or county commissioners. I mean, they're just, and if there's a conflict, they usually just state that openly that they have a conflict of interest on something. But as far as the immediate area, I think the majority are not doing that type of, or have that clause in their charter to have to resign.
Yeah, we had, David Tomita, I think, he ended up going to be Johnson City Mayor. He served on the Washington County Commission. I mean, it happens all the time. And, people are grown adults. They don't have to get their feelings hurt. If they do, then they're probably in the wrong seat to begin with and need to be beat. But, we survived as a town before. But, and like I said, this probably ain't the time. We could probably, making charter changes, generally they happen in January, and every January we can probably, bring something like this back up. But to me, we need to start thinking about it, because it's, I don't see the point in restricting I won't say ourselves, but, future boards from that. If Adam Dixon wants to be county trustee, why should he have to resign our seat? It'd be a valuable person or something, but, it's.
one of the things I did notice that I was surprised about was that we would get full health insurance.
No, that was one of the options in there would be for board members to pay the full-time employee insurance cost. That was one of the other options I didn't, that's one of the things in there I would change, because right now it's basically saying you pay full premium, which nobody in the town of Jonesborough pays full premium, but in some ways, to me, that's restricting you. In some ways, I'm not sure why board members are treated that way, but I was party of it. But it would just allow board members to purchase the health insurance at the same full-time rate as full-time employees. And of course, we've talked about 4 provisions now. You can choose to support one, or support, or all, or two or three, or none. But
Yeah, because I thought that was a big issue with the county commissioners just a few years ago,
Well,
wasn't it?
now, a lot of this came up during a little uproar. I know for myself, I was on the committee, and I'd be happy to speak about it. You know, one of the things on compensation, you had some cities, out in the west, and I think California, I remember specifically, where some boards were overcompensating themselves because the public wasn't paying attention to it, and it got out of hand. And so I was fully supportive of, keeping Jonesborough 10 or 12 years ago at that, safe level. But, which is why my recommendation now would be, yes, keep it at that safe level, but put some little bit of steps in there where future boards don't have to go to the vote of 6,000 people to give a $50 increase when the challenges of this job get greater and greater every election cycle. So that's modest. That was one of my reasoning in there, and one reason I think it makes sense to change it. Health insurance, having a person pay the full-time rate, that's still an expense, but it might mean that in 6 years, if someone's retired and they would be a valuable member to our board, that could be something that can encourage somebody to run for our seats. So that's all, to me, that's a recruiting tool, possibly, and a small cost. And then just on the other, I was party to the protecting incumbents and talking about relationships, but I think we got people that work for the county and the state now that we don't have to worry about them being too temperamental. And so I don't think we need to protect incumbents. Should be a free country. And I'd love to see anybody here go try to better themselves in a position, and I don't think we should restrict it. So.
Well, I think we should be in line with some of the other municipalities in this area. There has to be some type of parity, and holding our BMA back versus Irwin and some of these other guys that don't. I think why would we hold each other back? And I do like the idea of Danny Edens and being a town employee and being on county commission. I think that's to our advantage. So I see pros and cons in both.
All right. Any other discussion?
Well, very interesting issue. I still interested as to, I guess, Mayor, why why the issue came up the first time. And again, I heard Mr. Wheeler, heard you. Why we even took this path, but
I can address that. There was some thought there. We had a new state rep that you want to, get a relationship with, and I think it was thought that this would be a good way to endear him to the town of Jonesborough, and it didn't, and so it somewhat backfired. But it was a little bit of that involved, and looking back, I don't think that was healthy.
I see.
I can go through the list, but that's mostly along that line. Okay. And more than anything, I guess just the town, 140 years old. For 130 years, we existed with the charter set up to where aldermen had more freedom and weren't so restricted. And to me, it's time to treat this board with a little bit more respect and elevate it. That's all I'm asking to do, elevate it. It's not just for ourselves, it's every future board after this, because believe me, I won't be here that much longer, and we'll all be replaced by somebody probably 10, 15, 20 years from now. And I think you put a foundation in place to where it makes their job a little bit easier and helps recruit good aldermen and mayors in the future, because we need somebody to take over 10, 15, 20 years from now.
Well,
all right.
Mayor, I will say, and I appreciate your comments about wanting to have a sharp board and thinking about future boards. I will say that something to be said, and please don't think that I'm misinterpreting your comments, because again, we do want quality people, but there is something to be said about public servants. And, there's something to be said about that. Wanting to serve simply because you want to serve. Now, it seemed like to me, and again, now I may have my timeline wrong, but we had former Alderwoman Gerhardt. Seemed like to me at one point, and maybe I shouldn't put people's business out, but I thought that was another reason why we thought that at the time that we needed to have compensation for board members, because folks were on the board and the time that you put into committees and such, and so we thought that there was a need to have some kind of compensation. So again, I understand where you're coming from in terms of wanting to appropriately compensate, but I would hope that there's still that commitment to public service, and that's the guiding force for people who want to sit on the board.
Yeah, there's been, this year probably been the exception where you had some, quality people wanting to run for office. I think, the presidential election, you had, more interest in that, but they've been, sometimes we've struggled to have people want to serve. And to be honest with you, to expect nothing, I don't know. I look at it a little bit differently. I'm not going to nod my head and think that you guys should do what you do for free, or not. Everybody puts a lot of hours in. My off day is devoted to coming to the town of Jonesborough often, and so I think you need to look a little bit further ahead than what we are, and if we want to have the best people sitting on the board, respect it. If it's $50 or something, come on.
Yeah.
It can be, and this town of Jonesborough, it's not what it was 20 years ago. We got a lot of stuff going on. As we debated up here tonight, there's some good big decisions that impact our town for the long term, and we need good people setting up here. And I just don't know why you don't. I think I said be like Stephen said, we can be equal to the other places around here and certainly survive.
I feel like Jonesborough is a unique place. I've been in Jonesborough longer than any of you have been here. Probably longer than you've been born. And
Terry.
Except Terry, yeah. Sometimes. I'm trying to check. And, any board member that has ever run before has always, they've done it because their heart is in Jonesborough. Irwin may do differently, or Johnson City may do differently, but Jonesborough is unique. When you run for a board member position here, it's because you have a heart for Jonesborough. You don't have a heart, you don't have a reason because, I want to make money. I want to be paid for that position. I'm doing it because I feel in my heart that I want to make a difference in Jonesborough. I worked here for over 40 years, and I made a payday. When I came on this board, I thought it was going to be a breeze because I thought I knew everything. Being right here is 100% different than being out there as an employee. And, and my heart is here. I do a lot, and I'm just like you. I'm down here a lot, signing papers and doing things for whenever they need something. And I do look at my board packet, and I do, I really go in depth. And I myself would never take money for it. And I just feel like that if you want to be a representative for Jonesborough, that you do it because you love Jonesborough. You don't do it because you want to be paid. That's just my opinion.
Okay. Well, first, just don't misrepresent what the proposal. There's nothing, nobody gets anything unless the board votes for it. So the only change to compensation was to give future boards a little bit of freedom to raise something $50 without having to go to a vote of 6,000 people. So we're not talking about, just so the public knows, we're not talking about great compensation here. You're talking about tens of dollars. So that's, and again, the proposal there was for 2/3 vote of future boards.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
whether, and we can say, like I just said, we've had plenty of times, and I've been out there, calling people to say, hey, come run for alderman. I called Stephen and hey, just come run for alderman. And there's a lot of times you get no's because people have to devote a lot of time to it. And I tell you, we don't always have the luxury of having such two great incumbents and then have three really quality people. I don't think it's ever happened. So there's times we've begged people to run, and so maybe it's the way. I don't think we should let aldermen be. The alderman seats should be better than that, to where people want to run. And for whatever reason, only this past year did we see that. In the past, it's been a struggle. So that's in there. That's all I have to say.
I'd like to call the question, which means let's vote.
Yeah.
Okay. Abby, you want to give us your reasoning why you think the health insurance is onerous for aldermen? I mean, I know you made a motion there when it was mentioned that aldermen shouldn't get full-time health insurance. Is that?
Mr. Mayor, when somebody calls the question, you have to have a 2/3 vote of the body for the debate to continue.
All right. Let it be noted, I asked that question. All right, call for the vote, Madam Recorder?
And what is the motion?
To deny the
Okay.
request.
Yeah. No, motion is there to no changes to the charter and keeping in place the things I mentioned. Yeah, got a motion from Alderman Causey, a second from Alderman Countermine. Any other discussion? Call for the vote, Madam Recorder?
Alderman Causey.
Aye.
Alderman Callahan.
Aye.
Alderman Countermine.
Aye.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Alderman Causey,
I seconded it.
yes. Alderman Countermine.
Aye.
Alderman Callahan.
Nay.
Alderman Dixon.
All right, motion carried. We'll continue that discussion maybe to the next charter meeting. And I guess that's a wrap.